So earlier today we had Tamanu Neomchong, aka Knockout CP Freshmart, successfully defending his WBA World Minimumweight Championship against Odaira. And when this fight first got announced, when I first saw it on schedule, I wasn't really overly excited about it. I felt like Odaira was clearly overmatched. He had previously fought for two other championships at the 105-pound division, where he was knocked out by both Kayapan Munsui, aka Wenhei Manayoten, as well as Katsunari Takayama, but the WBA and the WBO champions currently, respectively. Although currently Takayama might have some issues with the WBO with regard to if he's actually going to be the champion going forward or not, but that's something for another video. But the way it actually turned out was Odaira actually put up a pretty good fight. I think he put up a better fight here against Nyamtron than he had against either Munsui or Takayama. He actually won the first round on my card. I thought that he started off pretty well. He was going to the body fairly well. It seemed like his overall southpaw stance and his use of reach, his use of his reach advantage as well as his height advantage, was giving Knockout CP Freshmart some issues in the first round. CP tends to start a little bit slowly. He tends to kind of take maybe a round or two to get into a good rhythm, but once he's in that rhythm, it's really difficult to shake him. And in spite of that, though, or partially because of that, Odaira was able to take advantage. I thought he boxed pretty well in the first round, even though it seemed like probably in the last 10 to 15 seconds, CP started to at least get into somewhat of a rhythm and start landing some pretty good right hands, particularly to the body. In the second round, I thought it was a pretty close round. I thought Odaira was still boxing fairly well, as well as hitting with some good shots on the inside to the body of knockout CP Freshmart as well. CP, I thought, got into a much better of a rhythm though. He was getting inside a bit more easily, was able to land a bit more clean shots. But the second round was again, it was more on the even side. I do think that CP definitely should have won it though. I wound up giving him the second round, and you could tell that from that point on, it was going to be a lot more difficult for Odaira to just be able to kind of almost like pot shot at mid to long range. Whereas CP is a bit on the short side, even for the minimum weight division. He's on the short side. He's only 5'1" as opposed to 5'3" and maybe a little bit of change, 5'3" and change for Odaira. The third round is where CP really started to get things going. He started landing much cleaner, excellent shots on the inside, good shots from the outside, leaning inside as well. And also kind of almost like bullying Odaira. Like one thing that CP does actually really well on the inside, where a lot of times when his opponents are trying to duck down below his straight shots that he's kind of shooting upwards, is after he throws that shot, he'll almost like lean on him as though he was like a taller opponent, even though he's almost every single time the shorter guy in there. So he was actually kind of like leaning up on Odaira after Odaira would duck really low, like almost like duck below the waist, and kind of take advantage of the positioning in there. Almost like a veteran tactic from CP, and something that he probably learned from Muay Thai kickboxing. It's something that they kind of do a lot in there. Usually they'll shoot up some knees from that particular angle, but of course you can't do that in boxing. So the ref winds up breaking them. They reset, and then he basically starts all over again. The fourth round is where he really started scoring big. CP managed to actually, was it the fourth round where he landed the first knockdown? I believe it was. Just managed to land a couple of good shots, but the knockdown, to me, I don't even necessarily think that it was entirely off of punches. It's almost like he landed a good right hand, and then after that, he almost like pushed him with his left hand. It's like he didn't even really land a jab. He just kind of like pushed him to the canvas afterwards, and the only right hand he landed after the first clean one up to the head was like a right hand actually below the waist, to like the left like hip, or like almost like the left butt cheek almost. But that was on the opposite side of the ref there. He didn't really see it, and the ref wound up calling it a knockdown. Odaira didn't really complain because he was at least a little bit buzzed from the shot that he had taken to the head, but he wasn't particularly hurt, and he actually fought back pretty well in spite of getting knocked down in that round. Landed a couple of good shots of his own, but even still, by that point, the tide was pretty much all with CP. And then finally in the fifth round, CP just poured it on in further fashion in order to basically finish the job. Managed to land a beautiful clean right hand right to the jaw, and that was all she wrote. Odaira was not going to make the 10 count. He got counted out, and that was another successful knockout for the man living up to his name once again. Knockout CP Freshmart, now 15-0 with 7 knockouts. Just doing a really solid job. In spite of the fact that I think that he probably should have been able to defeat this guy a little bit more easily and cleanly. It kind of does lend to the fact that I don't think he's really the best fighter at 105 pounds. I think that would have to go to either the WBC champ, Juan Manayoten, or the IBF champ, Jose Argumedo. I think that knockout CP Freshmart, in spite of a lot of the furor that kind of comes around his fighting style. He's almost like I've compared him to like an orthodox version of Manny Pacquiao in the past, and just he's an exciting fighter to watch, and his name is really fun to say. I don't really think he's the best fighter at the division. I think that Argumedo and Minayothin would probably defeat him if they were to fight tomorrow. But he's a guy that relative to them hasn't been boxing especially long, and he's managed to kind of do a lot in a fairly short amount of time. So he's definitely overachieved for what little overall experience that he's had. It's really interesting that his number one contender now currently for the WBA belt is Ray Loreto. I think Loreto is actually a very, very good opponent for him should they happen to fight next, because it's looking unlikely that there's going to be any kind of unification between him and the aforementioned names Argumedo Minayoten and Katsunari Takayama, or the WBO interim champ Tatsuya Fukuhara, who just recently won over Moises Calleros to become the interim champion in case Takayama decides to actually vacate that belt and move up to 108 pounds, which is a distinct possibility and something that's been talked about fairly recently. Other than Ray Loreto, though, if he was to rematch Byron Rojas, I think that would be a fantastic fight as well. I thought their first fight was a pretty razor thin type of fight. Rojas was coming off the big win over Heki Butler, just barely lost that first fight. There's also the likes of Simpiwe Konko, who of course also gave Heki Butler a very, very tough fight. I think he could give a difficult time to CP as well. Otherwise, most of the other guys at the WBA, I think he's generally favored to beat. Although with CP, I think there is a little bit more give than with somebody like Minayothin, who tends to be pretty dominant in his overall victories. So in light of all that, and in spite of all that, it looks like CP is just going to keep on rolling ahead, and it'll be interesting to see exactly who he fights next. He's a really fun fighter to watch, not only just for his fighting style, but also the fact that he does have some distinct flaws. And I think that matched against the right fighter, there might be certain guys that are able to actually take advantage of that. Who it might be coming up, I'm not entirely sure. I'm trying to remember one fighter in particular who actually, I think, Melvin Jerusalem. Melvin Jerusalem, he actually just came off a very, very razor-thin decision loss to Juan Manayoten. If Melvin Jerusalem were to actually fight knockout CP Freshman, I think that would be a very, very tough opponent for him. So like Loreto or Jerusalem, I think, would be two very evenly matched fights for CP, and fights where he could very well come out without his belt. Those are the type of fights that I definitely like to see for him. I think that fighting the likes of Odaira, who have already kind of tried and failed at the top level, aren't necessarily the best fighters to be fighting unless they manage to really reprove themselves deserving of another title opportunity. Odaira definitely improved since those two losses. He definitely showed some better skills overall here in this fight, more than I expected. But in spite of that, I expected CP to do the job a bit easier. But, of course, as I said, he is a fun fighter to watch. But that's going to be all I have for this particular fight, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.